sir.
Let's begin our discussion of Death of a Salesman, Danny. All right. So our first question is about the personal interpretations of the novel. So for me, in my eyes, Death of the Salesman was a bit of a cautionary tale, you know? So one of the main characters, Willie Loman, he lives his life monotonously, and he always has a facade of happiness up. And that left him kind of trapped inside his own mind. So Willie obviously portrays being trapped inside your own mind because he constantly relives memories and he has to relive traumatic moments in his life, like when Biff found out that he was having an affair with the woman.
Yes, of course. I personally feel that Death of a Salesman is a story about desperation and hope. The conflicting views that life has and the many portrayals of its endeavors are seen throughout the novel. I believe that Willie and Biff, as the two leading protagonists of the story, are naturally inclined to follow their own hearts and their beliefs. It started off with Willie and Biff feuding with each other over Biff's success. Mm-hmm. Then Biff decides to try and find a stable job. Willie excites at this notion and sees this as a great opportunity for success. Okay. When Willie loses his job and Biff is ignored by Bill, mm-hmm. both are in a state of depression and anger, and then they feud again. Mm-hmm. And then after the tears and the anguish, Biff finally opens up, and Willie accepts his son's love for what it is. And then over the course of the book, Willie has a lot of visions of a better time and a better place, and kind of sees that as hope for what could have happened.
Got it. All right, our second question is regarding the insights that we had as we read the novel. So for me, although the book was written in 1948, a long time ago, many of its themes are still relevant in society today. The pursuit of fortune is not all somebody needs to be happy, and the character Biff portrays that very well. Insights I had about the significance of the characters' names are that Willie kind of sounds like the phrase, will he? So this is, which sets up the lingering question of, will Willie kill himself at the end of the, at the end of the play? The last name Loman, which is Willie's last name, kind of sounds like the phrase, low man, which displays that Willie is feeling very down in his life, and it may give a reason as why he did some of his actions and his thoughts. Happy, one of Willie's sons, is kind of an ironic name because he himself is not happy. He spends his whole life living in his older brother's shadow, and he just wants to impress his parents. He goes as far as to lie about being married or about becoming married just to get some of his tensions, but his parents just write it off.
All right.
How about you?
Well, I feel that each character has their own different representation within the story.
Got it.
Willie represents a struggle between hope and desperation, with his will for Biff to succeed and his unconscious knowledge of Biff's failure. Mm-hmm. Biff represents Willie's undying passion for the American dream and to succeed in the capitalistic society that they live in. Willie attempts to live vicariously through Biff and tries anything to keep...
Good vocab.
and tries anything to keep that dream alive.
Right.
Happy represents the ignorance and the repetition seen throughout American history and the necessity for recognition.
Right.
Each person feels that they have the right to. Willie ignores the flaws and strengths in which Happy possesses and resents some of the actions in which he portrays. Happy begins to act in ways that a younger Biff would have acted, mm-hmm. because he wanted to find the love and attention from his father that Biff received at a younger age.
Like how he's chasing after those girls at the
yes.
dinner, right? Okay.
And how he's talking about how Biff is a professional football player.
Right.
And then Ben represents what is lost and can be found. Willie envisions imagery of his dead brother throughout the story, and that shows the unconscious acceptance that his hopes for the American dream have been lost, and he becomes suicidal and feels that he can succeed his son and really find a place for his son with that $20,000 if he were to die.
Right.
And that's what he feels can be found. Charlie represents the support in which Willie cannot provide his family. Charlie lends money and offers a job, but due to the arrogance that Willie has, he declines the job.
Yeah.
Bernard is the representation of reality, and he brings more realistic causes to the protagonists, but they refuse to give it proper attention due to their own personal arrogance.
Yeah, kind of going over the Charlie thing, it's kind of weird that he declined the job even though he just got fired from his sales job that Charlie offered him, even though he really needed the money. And then later in the scene, he still asks Charlie for money, which is kind of weird because he has this vision that like he doesn't want to have to beg for a job from Charlie, even though he begs for money afterwards.
Exactly.
That's kind of odd. All right, our third question is a personal reflection on whether or not we like the book and our reasons why. In my opinion, I thought the book was very good. Although it was a short read, Arthur Miller, he was able to include many story elements, and he was able to create emotional connections that we have to many of the characters. He makes us care about like the struggles of the characters, like how Willie and Biff are feeling, especially Biff. He goes deep into Biff's kind of backstory and why he acts the way he does. So although that we know Willie was going to die, because the title of the play is Death of a Salesman, and Willie is the salesman, he made his death somewhat a mystery because he kind of sets it up with the rubber hose in the basement. Like, Linda was very worried about that, so he thought that might be how he dies. And so it makes us have a deep impact on the reader when he finally dies. I also like the book because it was able to leave a lasting impact on me. I don't know about you, because it shows the importance that you have in someone else's life. Just how like Willie was so important to Linda that at the end of the play, she tries to deny that Willie's dead and that he's just on another business trip.
Indeed. What I thought about that is I really enjoyed the book. The book gave many visualizations to really portray the image in my head, so I could kind of visualize what was happening throughout the story. And I was able to imagine the different scenes and actions that the play was attempting to portray without actually seeing the play. I also felt that there was a sense of emotion given throughout the play, and you could really feel the desperation and the failure that Willie was feeling.
Absolutely.
So when Willie was talking to himself or going through the scenes in the past, you could feel that he wanted that to happen, that he wished that would have continued throughout his life instead of the desperate, money-needing man that he has become.
Agree. All right, are we ready to go? The big number 4 question?
We are.
All right, so this is, we got to share a critical question that we'll also answer, and we got to include 3 pieces of textual evidence, all right?
Okay.
So my critical question is, we have to discuss the importance of the American dream inside Death of a Salesman, and how the American dream is embodied in the characters of Death of a Salesman. So the importance is that the American dream is an overarching theme in Death of a Salesman, and it manifested in many of the characters in the play. The American dream is what keeps pushing Willie Loman to stay in the same job year after year, and it's what the American dream, or pursuing the American dream, is what ultimately led, at least in my opinion, what ultimately led Willie to killing himself. Throughout the play, Willie imagines things from the past, and these memories give exposition, but more importantly, they show the character Ben Loman, who is Willie's older brother. Ben is a prime example of the American dream, and Willie tries to imitate Ben in his own life. And Ben tells that he went to the jungle at age 17 and then came out when he was 21, but he also had a lot of riches. So Ben's life perfectly represents the American dream, meaning that anybody, any 17-year-old kid can go into the metaphorical jungle and then come out as a rich man. However, Ben cautions, never fight fair with a stranger boy. You'll never get out of the jungle that way, which is Miller, page 34. This shows kind of the cutthroat nature of the American dream and how unfair some business can be. This kind of goes over when Willie gets fired from his job. Even though he'd been working there for 30 some odd years, he still gets treated unfairly, even though he put all of his effort into that job. And so the American dream has the sense of like as getting a lot of money and being able to buy things. Biff, Willie's son, knows that you don't have to have monetary wealth in order to be happy. And a quote from Biff says, "No, nobody's hanging himself, Willie. I ran down 11 flights with a pen in my hand, and suddenly I stopped. You hear me? And in the middle of the office building, do you hear this? I stopped in the middle of that building and saw the sky. I saw the things that I love in this world, the work and the food and the time to sit and smoke. And I looked at the pen and said to myself, what the hell am I grabbing this for? Why am I trying to become what I don't even want to be? What am I doing in an office making a contemptuous, begging fool of myself when all I want is out there, waiting for me the minute I say I know who I am? Why can't I say that, Willie?" Miller, page 105. So this quote shows that Billy doesn't care for monetary things and objects, which is kind of represented in this fountain pen that he steals from Mr. Oliver, which is a very expensive pen, but even though Billy knows he might be able to sell that and make a few $100s, he knows that he would rather be living out in the West, farming, working with his hands, instead of having to do something that he doesn't want to do, like be in sales or whatever. And this shows that the American dream is different for each person, and that you don't have to conform to the normal idea of the American dream, like going out and getting $100,000. So it shows that it's different, and Biff knows that the American dream had a hard grip on Willie's dreams of being able to have enough money and be successful in life. And so Biff's quote to Willie is that, "Will you take that phony dream and burn it before something happens?" And we obviously know that something does happen. Willie ends up killing himself, and that makes his whole family sad. You're up, Denny.
All right. It's going to be kind of hard to follow up with that, but my critical thinking question was, where would we see a similar situation in the real world to the situation that Biff and Willie face? I said in the real world, many people strive for the American dream and to bask in the riches and glory that comes with it. While this dream is possible, one must work incredibly hard for it. Willie always has high hopes for the future and will be truly preferable to fulfilling this dream in a daydream that he has, like when he goes back to the past. Right. He states, don't say. Tell you a secret, boys. Don't breathe it to a soul. Someday I'll have my own business and I'll never have to leave home anymore." And this is the goal of a lot of people. A lot of people would like to have a solid career that pays finely so that they can retire at an early age and stop working within a relative time pool. In modern day New York, perhaps, many people are struggling for jobs or don't get paid enough to stay financially stable. Mm-hmm. A hopeful parent might have high dreams for their child, but know that succeeding in the real world, especially given their conditions in New York, may be futile. Mm-hmm. Willie claims that being well-liked and having good connections or being personally attractive is enough to get you into the business world and make you stay successful. But that doesn't deem true by any means, especially in the story. He claims that Biff is attractive and will, with no doubt, get the job with Bill Oliver because he used to be a salesman for Bill. He said, Biff says, "He walked away. I saw him for 1 minute. I got so mad I could have torn the walls down. How the hell did I ever get the idea I was a salesman there? I even believed myself that I had been a salesman for him. And then he gave me one look, and I realized what a ridiculous lie my whole life has been. We've been talking a dream for 15 years. I was a shipping clerk. Many people believe that there's something they're not.
Right.
People believe that they can reach unattainable goals and hit peaks without doing any of the work to hit those points. Biff had done little work throughout his life and kept expecting some miracle to take place and lift him into glory. And that's what Willie was expecting as well, because he believed that Biff was such a upstanding gentleman that he could go into any room and everybody would immediately want to hire him.
Mm-hmm.
But just because someone's attractive and well-liked doesn't mean that they can do anything. A lot of work needs to be done, and many people have a very similar mindset to Bill or to Biff or Willie. And another thing is Willie often turned to Charlie for his friendship and his help, and you can see that a lot in the real world as well. Charlie lends him money to pay for his bills, and Willie pretends that it's his paycheck to Linda, so that it looks like he's bringing home money.
Right.
Willie refuses the job that's offered to him out of just pure arrogance, because Willie believes that he can do it himself, and he doesn't need another person's help. But he was still in desperate need of cash, so he still accepted the $50 from.
Yeah, pretty ironic there.
Exactly. So when Willie loses his job, he says, "Charlie, look," and he says this with difficulty. He says, "I got my insurance to pay. If you can manage it, I need $110. In the real world, many people need money. Whether it's to pay off a loan or pay for last night's dinner, everybody could use an extra dollar or two. Although people are arrogant, they don't want to take people's handouts because they believe it's their responsibility to handle themselves and to push themselves forward in life. And you can see that in both the real world and in Willie, because he refuses to accept the job. He wants to believe that he can do it himself without any assistance from other people."
See, that quote, he talks about the life insurance policy, right?
Yes.
And so we know that if Willie dies, his family gets $20,000 for the life insurance, which kind of shows that Willie had been actually planning this for a while. He knows that maybe that he might have to kill himself in order for his family to keep going, but his kids know that they don't really need $20,000. They just want to be with their father and with their mother. They want to have a life where everybody's included, even if they might be living in poverty. They'll still have each other. And Willie can't see past that. He just knows that with $20,000, his sons can do many things, but even that doesn't stop him from killing himself.
Exactly. And then even towards the end of the book, or the novel, right before Willie kills himself, when Biff cries into him and really opens up, Willie still doesn't see that as true love, because when Biff walks up the stairs, he says, "You see that? He likes me." So he sees that as being well-liked by his own son.
I don't know.
And then Linda corrects him and says loves. So despite Biff showing love for his father and his family showing love for him, he still can't see past the American dream and trying to be well-liked in the business world, even when clearly he has everything he would need to be happy.
Got it. All right. So, I think we've kind of had a little... Question 5 is foster some discussion. I keep thinking about literature. I think that made us think a lot about the themes and stuff of Death of a Salesman. What do you think? Do you think that's accurate?
I think we've thought about it a lot, and that we have had a brief discussion about
I agree.
our opinions.
All right. Checkmate.